When you think of Arabia before Islam, what's the first image that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's probably this picture of a huge, empty desert with just a few scattered, disconnected tribes wandering around. But here's the thing. That picture, it's not even close to the full story. The truth is, it was this really complex place. A mix of ancient kingdoms, powerful empires pulling the strings, and fiercely independent tribal rulers. So let's get into it and explore this incredible, forgotten world.
So that leads us to the big question. Who was actually running the show? And the answer? Well, it's not some simple name or a single family. The Arabian Peninsula was more like a mosaic of different political systems, and you really have to understand them to get a grip on everything that was about to happen.
You can basically break it down into two main types of rulers in pre-Islamic Arabia. First, you had your crowned kings. These guys ruled places like Yemen and Hira, but their crowns, they kind of came with strings attached. They were often what you'd call vassals, totally dependent on the superpowers of the day, Persia and Byzantium. And then you had the heads of the tribes, the uncrowned rulers. These leaders had just as much power, if not more, but their authority came from their family name and the loyalty of their people. They were the real independent players on the map.
All right, let's start our journey way down south in Yemen. Now, this was no land of nomads. Nope, this was the home of an ancient civilization, a kingdom whose story is all about incredible engineering, centuries of glory, and, in the end, foreign conquest.
What's so wild here is just how deep Yemen's history goes. I mean, think about it. Way before 650 BC, its rulers were already constructing the legendary Dam of Marib, the very foundation of their entire civilization. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the kings of Sheba ruled from their capital. But then, around 300 AD, things started to, well, fall apart. Trade routes changed, fighting broke out from within, and Yemen slid into this long, painful era of total turmoil.
And that turmoil was just catastrophic. Around 450 AD, their great dam, the Dam of Marib, finally broke. It unleashed a flood that literally washed away their society. And as if that wasn't bad enough, he had foreign invasions. The Abyssinians, or Ethiopians, saw the internal chaos and invaded not once, but twice. The second invasion was led by Abraha. You might know him from the famous story of his march on Mecca with his elephants. For a short time, the Yemenis got their independence back with some help from Persia, but it didn't last. Persia quickly turned on them, and this once great kingdom, it ended its pre-Islamic story as just another Persian colony.
Okay, so from the south, let's head way up north, to Hira in what is now Iraq. If Yemen's story was about losing independence, Hira's was about being built on being dependent. It was a textbook buffer state, caught right in the middle of a great game between the Persian and Byzantine empires. So what in the world is a vassal kingdom? Well, think of it like this. The Persian Sasanian Empire was a superpower, but it couldn't just go in and rule the fierce Arab tribes on its border. It would be a nightmare. So they had a smart solution. They appointed a friendly Arab king to rule the region of Hira. This king would keep the other tribes in check and act as a shield against Persia's #1 rival, the Byzantine Empire, who, by the way, had their own Arab vassal kingdom over in Syria. It was this huge game of geopolitical chess, and Arab kings were the key pieces on the board.
For a long, long time, this system worked out great for Persia. But then came a moment that changed everything. The Persian king, Kisra, got really angry with his vassal in Hira, a king by the name of An-Nu'man. He called him to the capital, but before An-Nu'man left, he did something really, really important.
See, An-Nu'man knew he was basically walking into a trap, so he took his entire family, his fortune, everything, and he entrusted it to an independent tribe, the Shayban, led by a chief named Hani bin Masud. So when the Persian king eventually imprisoned and killed An-Nu'man and then demanded that Hani hand everything over, Hani said no. In Arab culture, protecting something entrusted to you was a sacred honor, way more important than any order from a foreign king.
Kisra was enraged. I mean, can you imagine a minor desert tribe telling a global superpower no? It was just unthinkable. So he put together this massive imperial army, a combination of his own Persian troops and warriors from other loyal Arab tribes, and he sent them to make a brutal example of the Shayban. So, the two armies met at a place called Deccar. Everybody, and I mean everybody, expected a quick, bloody Persian victory. But at Deccar, the unthinkable happened. Against all odds, the Arabs completely routed the Persians. For the first time in recorded history, a bunch of Arab tribes defeated the full military might of the Persian imperial army. The Battle of Deccar sent shockwaves across the entire region. It became this legendary moment of Arab defiance, and it proved they were not just pawns in somebody else's game.
And that right there, that story perfectly shows the difference. On the edges of Arabia, kings were hired and fired by foreign empires. But deep in the heart of the peninsula, in the region called the Hijaz, it was a completely different world. Here, power wasn't a gift from an emperor. It was something you earned, through your family, through respect, and through ancient tribal customs. And that brings us to our final stop, the Hijaz, and more specifically, the city of Makkah. This was the turf of the uncrowned rulers, where power was this complex mix of politics, business, and religion.
The story of who ruled Makkah is a long one. It's all about who was in charge of the sacred Kaaba. Power passed from the descendants of Ishmael to the Jurham tribe, who held onto it for almost 2,000 years. Then they got pushed out by the Khuzā. But the real game-changing moment came in the 5th century AD, when a man named Qusay bin Kalab managed to unite all the scattered clans of his tribe, the Quraysh, and made them the undisputed masters of Makkah.
Now, Qusay wasn't just a conqueror. He was a builder. He basically established what you could call a petite state, or a city-state. He set up a formal government with specific jobs and responsibilities, and he gave all these positions to the leading families of the Quraysh.
And just look at these jobs. Qusay created an assembly house, the Nadwa, which was pretty much a parliament. He formalized roles like who would carry the flag in a war, and of course, the super important religious duties tied to the Kaaba, who keeps the keys, who provides water to the pilgrims, and who feeds the poor pilgrims who came from all over. It was this unique blend of political and religious power all rolled into one.
Now, here's the really clever part. After Qusay, to keep the peace, all these powerful jobs were split up among the different clans of the Quraysh. So you had one clan handling the money, another clan taking care of diplomacy, another in charge of the military. It was this decentralized system of shared power, almost like a republic of families, that stopped any one clan from getting too powerful and kept the whole city running smoothly.
Okay, so let's zoom out and put all the pieces together. What did the political map of Arabia really look like right before Islam? Well, it was a land of huge contrasts. A peninsula that was really on the edge of a massive change.
So what does it all boil down to? You've got this deep fragmentation, right? Tribes are constantly fighting each other. You have foreign empires, Persia and Byzantium, treating the north and south like their personal colonies. Then in the huge center of the country, you have total independence, but it's chaotic. And right in the middle of it all, you have the Hijaz, with Makkah as this unique center of respect and influence. And the bottom line of all this? A giant power vacuum. There was no single king, no central government, nobody who could unite all the Arabs or protect them from outsiders.
Which leaves us with one last, really big question. In a land so defined by its divisions, split between foreign puppets in the north and south, independent but feuding tribes in the middle, and a city-state of merchants in the west, what kind of force, what kind of idea could possibly be powerful enough to bring it all together?